உள்ளதல துள்ளகுணர் உள்ளதோ உள்ள பொருள் உள்ளல் அற உள்ளத்தே உள்ளதார் உள்ளம் எனும் உள்ள பொருள் உள்ளல் எவன் உள்ளத்தே உள்ளபடி உள்ளதே உள்ளல் உணர்வாயே. Namo Ramana. With Bhagavan's immense grace, we are continuing our meditations on the Viveka segment of Ulladu Narpadu. We have come to the end of Bhagavan's Upadesham on the first eye, the first ahankara that rises from the pure self. Because he says, Vidhi and Madi both arise holding on to one, holding on to a ahankara. Now, which ahankara can Vidhi hold and rise? Which aham? Only the aham of God, because by the very name God's will, Vidhi, it must arise holding the aham of God only. So, Vidhi Madi Moola Vivekam Vilarke. Where is the Moola Vivekam Bhagavan is taking us? He is to the self of all, to the supreme self, or in Bhagavan's terminology, the self, Atman. So before we go on to the next verse, the 23rd verse, let us take a brief look at what was it that Bhagavan covered for us in the knowledge he had shared, knowledge he had given as Upadesham, as instruction in the verses 8 to 22. 8 was எப்பெயரிட்டு எவ்வுருவில் ஏத்தினும் ஆர் பேருருவில் அப்பொருளை காண்வழியது. Bhagavan begins like that. What is it that எப்பெயரிட்டு எவ்வுருவில் ஏத்தினும்? We get a clue when Bhagavan says that between two states, the waking and sleep, for instance, between those two states, there is the self, there is the supreme God, there is the light of this Purana. And Bhagavan, of course, clarifies in various places that if one can get into that gap from deep sleep, when one is waking, when one can slow down the wheels of the waking, then one can experience that light between the two states. Of course, Sri Krishna in the Gita says that this is present in the gap between yugas, where avatars appear for each yuga. The avatars appear and balance these two forces of two yugas. When we go up into the Himalayas, as many of our friends have gone, we find many places where two rivers meet. Now, wherever the two rivers meet, there are two forces. And then there is a balancing force which allows the two to flow further. Either one may join with another, or the other may join with this, or they may both join and take a new course. But there is something beyond the forces of the two rivers which creates the new journey. And Bhagavan brings down the Yuga Avatara to the gap between two states. So he brings it to the span of the waking, dream and deep sleep cycle. So we see Bhagavan tell elsewhere to Swami Natanananda that Upadesha itself means to bring something that appears very far and difficult to attain as something near, and not only attain but be identified with. That is Upadesha, to bring it near. Upa is near, Desha is seat. So to be seated very near the Guru, or to be identified with the Guru himself as one with him. So he goes further. From the gap between two states, from two yugas, Bhagavan brings it to two states, and from two states, he brings it even nearer. He says that the Supreme Self, the light of the Supreme Self, is present in the gap between just two thoughts. Between two thoughts, we have the Avatara. We have the light of Supreme Self. But what is it that blocks that light and brings it to vision the scene? That is the Ahankara. The light is blocked and something else rises and participates in the scene. As I am one of the scene, and then sees the rest of the scene as the world. That is the rise of the Ahankara. So that is what blocks the light from our vision, says Bhagavan. This is the knowledge he is giving us. That, and for that later, as we will be practicing Atma Vichara, we will actually implement that knowledge. We won't leave it merely at knowledge level. We will be implementing it and transforming ourselves. How? As each thought arises, Bhagavan asks us not to give continuity to the thought cycle by going to the next thought. He says, break and go into the gap between the two thoughts by asking for whom is this thought. You will put the light on the Ahankara, which has arisen from the pure light of the self, to participate in the scene. As this here, ask the source of that, and one gets a dip into the light supreme, says Bhagavan. This is more or less the knowledge that is contained in the verses 8 to 22. That இரட்டைகள் முப்புடிகள் என்று ஒன்று பற்றி இருப்பவாம் ஒவ்வொன்றேதென்று கருத்தினுள் கண்டால் கடலும் அவை. Any duality, birth and death, good or bad, good and bad, pleasure and pain, all these arise holding on to one. What is that? The one Ahankara which has risen and identified with the form, with the body. I am this body. When it identifies with the physical body, it participates in the physical scene. When it identifies with the subtle body, it participates in the mental loka, when it unknowingly merges in the causal body, it only enjoys happiness of the Supreme unknowingly, as the causal body prevents it from identifying with the Supreme. But the I am the body idea at the very root is the one holding which all these arise. And Bhagavan takes up the duality of Arivum, Ariyamayam. The whole world knowledge is only Ariyamayam, he says. We look at the knowledge of, let's say, somebody informs us that there is water shortage. And immediately one learns about reducing the usage of water and starts bathing with less water. But then the knowledge is also given that one fish sandwich or one mutton sandwich takes about 2,500 liters of water to prepare. Maybe one may cut down that as part of one's knowledge to save water. That is called as water footprint, knowing how much water is consumed. So these are all very valuable information in the world and very much there for us to experience. But who is Bhagavan addressing? Bhagavan is addressing those who are seeking the Supreme. In Ramana Gita he says, for those who are seeking the Supreme, the best course is only to know yourself. Because whatever you do and whatever you enjoy is purely dependent on who you are. So Bhagavan's knowledge, as one of the Swamijis speaks, I think it is Chidanand Maharaj on YouTube, Chidanand Maharaj's successor in Shivananda Ashram. He talks about knowledge, and Bhagavan is giving us here knowledge. He says knowledge can be of two types. One is something that you don't know and is added on to your kitty. Let's say you don't know how to make an operation in the mobile, and you learn it from someone, maybe far younger than you, but who has knowledge of it, how to operate that app, what you can access. That definitely is added on to the kitty. But Chidananji asks, there is another type of knowledge, the knowing of which transforms your very being, changes your being, at least. What is that kind of knowledge? Knowing which there is a change in your being. For instance, the environment-friendly knowledge about what is consuming how much water, that changes a little. That changes you a little from being a better environment-friendly person. But does it completely transform you? What is this transformational knowledge which Vedanta talks about, where knowing itself is being, where knowledge itself is being? That is what Vedanta talks about, and that's what Bhagavan is giving us here. That the knowledge does not bring about any change, does not make any becoming in the self, but merely reveals what you truly are, removing the ignorance of what you are not. Best example, of course, would be of karma. When Krishna informs him that he is Kaunteya, or Kuntiputra. Now, did he become anything? Did he get changed from one being to another being? From being not such a responsible father to being a responsible father. You learn about what your child is educating herself on. You also learn that, and you spend time with your child in educating her. So there is a change in your being, who you are, that you change from being not such a responsible father to being a responsible father. There is a change. But is it of the same nature as knowing itself is being, not changing, but that very knowledge itself is being. That is the transformational knowledge that comes about in Karna's case, where the moment he knows that he is Karna, he realizes that his being itself is Karna only. The ignorance is removed and the knowledge brings about a complete total transformation in one's own very being. That is what is taught by Bhagavan in these verses. From verse 8 to verse 22, Bhagavan brings about or gives us that knowledge, constantly pointing out to that one in us which is rising and which when inquired into vanishes, and the dualities and the traits, they just drop away, and the ahankara which arose is transformed into its reality, not into some becoming, but into its reality as the Atman. The knowing itself is being. And Bhagavan does not give us an objective knowledge. Like the Kaunteya is told that it is not something for him to identify with, but it is the inquiry into the ahankara is merely removing the dust so that the light that which we are rises and shines as I. மதிக்கொளி தந்தம் மதிக்குள் ஒளிரும் மதியினை உள்ளே மடக்கி பதியில் பதித்திடல் அன்றி பதித்திடுதல் அன்றி பதியை மதியால் மதித்திடுதல் எங்கன். Bhagavan says that which is the ulla porul is the padi which is self-luminously shining within, the reflected light of which is lighting up your mind and ahankara. So how can you measure it with your mind? To turn inwards, face that light and merge your mind into that very light is the seeing of that. Bhagavan would have begun the 8th verse by saying how to have darshan. எப்பெயரிட்டு உருவிலேத்தினும் பேருருவில் அப்பொருளை காண்வழியது ஆயினும் அம்மை பொருளின் உண்மையில் தன் உண்மையை ஓர்ந்து ஒடுங்கி ஒன்றுதலே உண்மையில் காணும். The true darshan. And he would have completed it in verse 22 by saying, turn the mind inward, stop all measurements, because measurements involve thoughts, thoughts involve the seen, whereas the Supreme Self is beyond the division of seer and seen. So whenever the duality of seer and seen appears, don't build on the seen by taking one more thought. But very thought you are now addressing. Ask for whom is that? That is for the ahankara. Then turn that light and put it on the ahankara. We get the practice of Atma Vichara. And Bhagavan has brought the Viveka to the root problem. The root problem is the true life somehow identifying with a body as I am this body. The moment I identify with this body,
I feel I am surrounded by this room. I am enclosed by this room. I am away from some temple where Bhagavan is there. That is the feeling I get the moment I identify with this physical body. When I identify with the subtle body, the subtle life, then the temple, the other places, the stars billions of light years away, are all within, are brought within my grasp as thoughts, as thought energy, but still separated from me. Still the thought that I have to go and become that may still exist in that knowledge, the subtle knowledge, because the causal ignorance has not been addressed, the humai has not been addressed. And from there, Bhagavan transforms us. The knowledge that Bhagavan gives, that takes the ahankara and inquire into it, till the truth reveals itself, the dualities, the triads, the first person, second person, third person, the present, past, future, time and place, the fate and free will, that we have to go somewhere and see God. All these things are squashed at the very source. And one has the darshan of the Supreme by identifying with it. But still, Bhagavan has not brought us to the acme of his teachings, the root of all problems and the solution to all problems. Bhagavan is going to reveal in the next few verses, 23, 24, 25, 26, is the Viveka about the root problem. 27, 28, 29, and even 30 can be taken as the solution to the root problem. So let us go to verse number 23. நானென்றித்தேகம் நவிலாது உறக்கத்து நான் என்று ஆறும் நவில்வதில்லை. நானொன்றெழுந்த பின் எல்லாம் எழும். இந்த நானெங்கெழும் என்று நுண்மதியால் எண். Instructs Bhagavan. நானென்றித்தேகம் நவிலாது. That is the first phrase to be addressed. உறக்கத்து நானென்றாரும் நவில்வதில்லை. The second piece of knowledge to be understood. உறக்கத்து நானென்றாரும் நவில்வதில்லை. நானொன்று எழுந்த பின் எல்லாம் எழும். The third piece of knowledge to be reiterated 2 verses later. நானொன்று எழுந்த பின் எல்லாம் எழும். Then the fourth piece of knowledge to be digested as Viveka in the நானெங்கெழும் எங்கு எழும் என நுண்மதியால் எண். So let us look at the meaning of these 4 pieces of knowledge that Bhagavan gives us as transformatory knowledge. As Chidanand Maharaj says, that it is not merely a knowledge you add on to your collection of information. It is something that is going to bring about a transformation that is even more radical, that does not even give an option to say, no, though I know I am Karna, I still want to fight for Duryodhana. That option itself is not there in the knowledge that Bhagavan is going to reveal to us. It is absolutely transforming in nature as the ego and its contents are obliterated in the light of the self. Nanendrideham naviladi is the first one, that the body does not say as I. Again and again Bhagavan says, does the body come and tell I? You only raise and identify as mouth and say, I want to speak, I want to tell, I want to see. And you identify. Sangam meri ahangaritidum. ஆணவ படுபாவையை துங்க ஞானவாள் கொண்டு சாடுவி தூமணிச்சுடர் ஆகினீர். says Ramana Sadguru, where what is the nature of the ahankara? It identifies with the partner that is me. I am the I know and I am seeing. I am the you know. Oh, what harsh words is. How clearly I am able to listen. all the faulty words that others are using. Angammeri ahangarityedu. Does the ear say that it is I? No, I identify with the ear. I am the listener. Something from within rises and identifies with the body as I, says Bhagavan. So, Nanendri Deham Navilada. And Deham, of course, includes all the 5 sheets. Vigrahendriya, Pranadhitamaha, Nahamekasat, Tat Jadam, Shriyasat, says Bhagavan. That is, Vigraha, the Indriya, the body, the senses, Indriya, Prana, the 5 pranas that we have, the mana, prana, dhi is, of course, it includes manas and buddhi here. Tama is all the vasanas into which we go into laya, in deep sleep, the tama, none of them have I, says Bhagavan. Not even one of them has the ability to say I. The ability to say I lies something beyond all these 5 koshas. None of these koshas, all of them are jada. They are kesat. They don't exist, say Bhagavan. In the absolute existence, none of these 5 koshas, none of these 5 bodies have existence. Therefore, none of the worlds perceived through this uparis, none of them have real existence. So, Nanendriyam Navilade, the instruction is something else from within is rising and claiming and identifying and then saying, I am tired, all these situations are troubling me, I am in total misery. Nanendriyam, the body doesn't come and say, hold me. There is this instruction of Paramahamsa that you are embracing the tree so tightly and say that the tree is holding me, the tree is holding me. Let go of the tree. Let go of the identity with the body. Seems to be the instruction of all these great points. Nanendriyam Navila. The next point, Urakkat, Nanendra Endru Aru Navilvadil. In deep sleep, does anyone say that he does not exist? Many talks are there in which Bhagavan clears this. Does the one going to sleep as N rise up as M? No. The one who goes to sleep as Nandakumar rises up as Nandakumar only. So there is a continuity in the interim. Now, deep sleep is being inquired into by psychologists these days, and they have now divided deep sleep itself, not even REM sleep, the deep sleep itself into 2-3 stages, where there is learning and where there is no lucid learning, and then where there is no self, where there is no sense of the identity with the self. The 3 portions they have divided so far, but the research is still going on. But Bhagavan says you can bring that deep sleep here itself, and you can yourself examine whether you exist in that thought-free state. But that is much later. Let us stay with the verse. Urakattu Nanendru Aru Navilvadillai. Of course, there are some questioners in the talk who have said that I am the body even in deep sleep, because the body also appears, doesn't it? They say, as soon as I wake up, so therefore in sleep also I should have been the body. Then Bhagavan counters such ones by saying, then when the body dies, it should say that I will not leave this house. This is registered in my name. How can you take me and put me in the fire or underground? Then such people also come around and say, no, I am not the body. I am the intelligence or the spirit within the body. So Bhagavan tells to such one, see, so far you were arguing that you are the body. Therefore, what is wrong in worshipping God with form? And that was what he was saying See, the beautiful part of that worship is that Bhagavan has said that the Supreme is between two thoughts. That means the whole show we are seeing is thoughts having differences and the gap having no difference. The gap is a constant and it has no difference. It is calmness, it is peace, it is bhakti, it is love. It is full of unbroken happiness. We leave the gap and hold the differences. And the great ones, the gaps they have named appropriately. There are ways into which we cannot go into how they give the name Rama or Krishna or Gayatri Japa or any of those names, including our Bhagavan, Ramana, who clearly take us to that gap and reveal the nature of that gap. So the gap is identified and given a name because we are not eligible or capable of seeing that light directly. We are unable to see the light directly. So the great ones have named the gap. And when the gap is seen and the light flows, it just absorbs the whole show. The Namarupa show is is covered by the deluge of that light. The light absorbs that and it is full of happiness. It is full of chit. It is full of tanmaya. It is anandya. It is chinmaya. It is tanmaya. But that is what it is. That is how the japa dhyana comes. That the gap, and you can see in children with special disabilities, many of them listen to japa. Many of them listen to dhyana of names. Now the interesting part is they are all japis, dhyanis who have somehow got an aversion to the senses and are hesitating to come back to use the senses. But they have learned the happiness is gap. And whenever somebody is doing dhyana and japa or even mindfulness meditation, they all sit calmly there. They are much more educated than what the psychologists think they are. Because they can see happiness where the normal people behind thoughts cannot. But we misjudge them. We feel that they do not know because they do not use the human language. But they are far more advanced in the science of happiness, which lies in the gap between two thoughts, say the great ones. In that gap, you are there, says Bhagavan. In the gap which appears in deep sleep. Between two waking states, in deep sleep, where you go, you don't know. That gap is there. In that gap, you are there. And that you find out who you are there. Nanendristeham navilad. If you identify with this thought or that thought doesn't say it is me. You only go and say, I am father. No. I am a worker. No. I am a citizen. All these identities are thoughts, let us say. Between them lies the true identity. The identity of the self. Urakattu, when we in sleep, none of these identities are there. You are still there. Urakattu nanendran aarum navilvadillai. The one who sleeps as Nixon wakes up as Nixon only, not as Dixon or something like that, says Bhagavan. So you exist. Nanendrandrarum navilvadillai. In the நான் எழுந்த பின் எல்லாம் எழும். After this ego rises only, what all rises from verse 9 to verse 22, everything arises only after the rise of the ego, rise of the I. நான் எழுந்த பின் இரட்டைகள் முப்புடிகள் எழும். These dualities and triads rise after the rise of the I. The knowledge and ignorance rise after the rise of the I. The multiplicity of knowledge rises after the rise of the I. The first person, second person, third person, all these arise after the rise of the I. The vidhi, the fate and we will also rise up. Ellam எழும். The நான் எழுந்த பின் எல்லாம் எழும். We are going to revisit this 2 verses later. But this much is enough now for the third knowledge input by Bhagavan. After the ego arises, everything arises. That means this ego, once one goes beyond that, whatever could have been possessed and enjoyed in all of them is simultaneously enjoyed in the source. The simultaneous fulfillment of all the could have received from any of the possessions that the ego could have had is available in the very source. In the very source of the நான் எழுந்த பின் எல்லாம் எழும். இந்த நான் எங்க எழும் என்று நுண்மதியால் ஏன், says Bhagavan. What is the knowledge? The transformational knowledge that Bhagavan is giving from where the I arises. Because after the rise of I only, fate and free will arise. After the rise of I only, the apparent version of God arises. After the rise of I only, the past, present, future, time, space, all these arise. Therefore, எல்லாம் எழும். இந்த நானே எழும். How to transcend all that from where the I arises. Find that out. How we have to find out? Nun madiyal yen. This nun madi, we have to capture it now itself. We have to understand. See, there is a video which I had forwarded in the group about how knowledge is used in the best of the universe. Brazilian, forget his name, I had forwarded the video. He's talking about what is the best education we can get in this world. A very nice and comprehensive video, very heartfelt presentation from him. What he has done is, he has found that the universities, what they are basically doing, they are building three capacities in us: knowing, being, and doing. Knowing, being, and doing. It sounds familiar, isn't it? That's what Vedanta says. It stops with knowing and being itself. Knowing itself is being. But for a moment, let us go into the other area of knowledge, then retrace our way back to how Bhagavan is the same universe. Gentleman, video I had forwarded, but very sincere work about how knowledge is first required. He is the one who talks about the water footprint. He is from Brazil, and he finds that there is a shortage of water in Brazil. He first starts by bathing less sharp time. He says there is a saving of about 40-50 liters of water. If you reduce shower time from 10 minutes. But if you stop eating the non-vegetarian or that beef sandwich he says, and then also put milk, 1 liter of milk, it requires 200 liters of water. You can't hear? Okay, I put this on 1 minute. I'm audible? Julie, can you just speak, please? Let me see if I can hear something.
It is slightly getting cut, sir.
Okay. Can you speak again, Ujjalji? Seems to be okay. 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 Shall I continue? The video and talking? Huh?
Sir, you can keep the video off, sir, so that bandwidth will be conserved and we can hear properly.
Yeah. Is it all right now? Okay. So I was talking about the presentation by the Brazilian who had forwarded. He talked of best of the universities. What are the best of the universities? He has spent a lot of time. Says they give us three capacities. And Vedanta, of course, covers all the three by knowing itself by being. But later, first let us see normal learning in the world of the highest nature according to the Brazilians. He says that if you know that eating that particular thing, you're going to spend 2,500 liters of water, is not better knowing about how bathing less we save? Obviously, that thing is first. Then seeing that should have some change in you. Does that the change that Chidanand Maharaj is saying, some knowledge that should allow you, that should bring a change in you. It should not about the transformational knowledge of karma, but it makes you a better environmentalist. This knowledge about what has a greater spending of water, what he calls as water footprint, the knowledge of that makes you a better water conservationist. Now, he says that's not enough. Obviously not, isn't it? You have to practice it. He says that while in Brazil, while he was walking in by the river to the college, there was some old sofa that was lying there in the water, and he has walked past it for several years without doing anything about it. So if you know Bhagavan's teachings, but don't practice the bhakti and the surrender and atma vichara, it's of not much use, obviously. So he says that the best of the universities, they now focus on these three: knowing, then being the better person for which they use interpersonal skills and all that, then actually implement it and see. And he says the universities, they have two qualities. One is introduce challenge, so that there can be better growth in them, and to practice the implementation of challenge to create a good atmosphere where the satsang or the theme does not doubt, allows for mistakes and not judge. All these things are there. These two elements are there in such institutions. And he ends the video by saying, can we stop waiting for institutions or learning places alone to be like this? Can we make every relationship like this? Where whomever we meet, can we think of the knowledge which would improve us? Then see that that knowledge brings about a change in us, and also practice and bring about the change in the world around us by doing what we know and we are. Now that was the video I had forwarded, but all the three are now clubbed by Bhagavan as all these arise after the rising of the I. You investigate only into the I, says Bhagavan. Now, what happens to the doing in the world? What happens to the participation in the world? Well, it becomes very clear in Bhagavan's discussions with Kapali Shastri that as you put light on yourself in who am I, then there is an immediate transformation in you from a little bit of the attachment to the body goes, and a little bit of the light of the Supreme Self comes. So the one who faces the same challenge also is already a transformed person. He's already an improved person, already a more sensitive person. So the meeting of the world is incorporated in Bhagavan's teachings automatically, without making an attempt, without even the situation changing. You already bring about an improvement in the situation by transforming who you are in who am I. So who meets the next challenge? Suppose we don't complete the identification with the self direct, we take some 8-9 years. But Bhagavan says each time you do who am I, you are bringing a transformation in yourself. Each relationship you participate in, each team you are working in, each of the communities you are a member of, automatically have a better citizen, have a better person when one is self-attentive. That is the beauty of Bhagavan's teachings. Without even, Bhagavan doesn't do Tandora about this. But it is so clear to us, as you improve, bring light into you, automatically these things happen. So focus only on self-transformation, says Bhagavan. All that happen appropriately, automatically. That's how he says, the one who seeks the Supreme, take up this task of inquiring who I am. Because what you do and what you enjoy are dependent on who you are. Now, what are you going to do? When you are a better light, obviously it is better than leaving the sofa there, isn't it? Now, that is automatically, there is not even a feeling that I am doing. The better light or the movement towards the Supreme Self is the only task. It is the Brahmastram. You can't see it with this eye. You can't see it with another thought. You have to turn the light of attention going behind thought. You have to turn it inward and put it on yourself and ask, who am I? That practice, Bhagavan mentions from 27 onwards. But right now, with Bhagavan's immense grace, let us sit in the supreme practice, which automatically takes care of what the university, what that person is saying. The best of the university, he goes to Sweden, he goes to two other places and sees what is it that the best of universities do differently. They bring about a better way of challenging. The students themselves, they create the syllabus. Now, they create their own challenge and the mentors merely guide, oh, this is where you want to investigate, go ahead and try. So that kind of freedom, obviously you see the encouragement to bring out better light from within the children, but that will happen automatically when one transforms oneself. Each of the relationships you are engaged in, apparently engaged in a dream state, each of those relationships will be in better light. Obviously, because you are moving towards the supreme light. And this one sadhana, this one brahmastram is automatically enough to play the role properly, to be the right devotee to the God that you are worshipping, and also to move towards the supreme truth and get that knowledge, knowing which is itself being. There is no becoming. You really understand that you are already the Kaunteya. The necklace is already there on your neck, and you are that which is. You are the Ullapurul. You are that which is. It cannot be anything else. You are the self-luminous self. The knowledge and the practice merely remove the dross, and the being, the Ullapurul, rises and shines as I, consuming the knowledge and the actions into its light. Virikadiral yavum vilum. In the light of the self which is present between two thoughts, that rises and consumes the yugas, the eons, all that is consumed by this light which rises from within us and shines. I. Let us sit in practice till 8 o'clock when Ka will bring new light to the verse.
नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय।
Namo Ramana. I request Sharadaka.
Namo Ramana. Can you hear me?
Namo Ramana. Couldn't see you.
Illustrations to Ramana shining as a self in all being. By the immense grace of the self, manifest as Ramana, we are now meditating on the verses of Ulladu Narpadu, and there are very significant verse in terms of our practice, direct practice of self-inquiry, which says Jada Udal Nan Ennad. In this, Nandakumarji has taken us through the beautiful aspects of where we can experience this truth in the changeover point between the thoughts, and that which is unmoving, that Satchit Udiyadu, that can be experienced between the two thoughts. So it's something which is very practical, and further he has also pointed out to us how all kinds of knowledge, there can be gathering, mere gathering of knowledge. Even Bhagwan's teachings, if we simply gather it and if we don't practice it, it would be of no use, almost of no use. Maybe it is available for use at any point of time. If this reminded me of a story which Bhagwan gave about simple gathering of knowledge. This is about a Roma Maharshi who wanted to study all the Vedas, and he had millions of years as his life. At the end of one life, he wanted another life, then another life, like this. He kept on asking for more in order to master even one Veda he had not managed. Then the Supreme gave him a dream where there were 4 mountains, huge mountains of sugar, and there was a huge, monstrous kind of ant, very, very huge ant, which was simply going to the one mountain of sugar and shifting the sugar to a place near its home, near the ant hill. It was going on doing this, and it had not even completed one mountain of sugar in this process of shifting. And the Rishi, when he woke up, he understood that all he is doing is shifting the objective knowledge from wherever it exists outside in the universe, into his own mind. Nothing further is happening, no transformation is happening, being also is not there. So, this is the crux. So, we have to get to the being. So, Jada Udal Nan Ennadu. Even this one statement, if we start practicing it, we understand every aspect of bodily experience is not actually created by the body, because the body is not saying I at all. Jada Udal Nan Ennad. So the body is not creating any experience for us. Wherever I say I feel, that is not created by the body, because body is not saying I. If body is not saying I, how can it create any experience for us? And Satchit Udiyad, the truth is not rising. So there is this Granthi.
Akka,
Sir.
this is the previous verse, but up to now it is the same meaning.
I see, okay.
No, up to now it is still the same meaning, but nanendrit deham naviladu, urakattu nanendrit, that one.
This was being said, okay.
No, but up to now it is the same meaning.
Okay, this body does not say I. Okay. The body does not say I. Okay, that is only the meaning which I am trying to emphasize, but I am quoting the wrong verse. Nanendrideham naviladu. The body does not say I. Even in the previous verse, he says, and in the deep sleep, the I is not absent. So the point is that the body experience is not experience of the self. It is none of the bodily experiences. So none of the bodily experiences are real experience of our true nature. They are not the experience of the being. So நான் என்று தேகம் நவிலாது ஆழ் உறக்கத்தில் there we do not say
Navindran Rarum Navilvadilla. That we don't.
though the body is not saying I, and though in deep sleep also we have the sense of I. So it is not related to the bodily experience. So the point, the main emphasis is that our true nature is something which is beyond the physical experience, and the physical experience means experience of body in the waking and experience of the body in the dream also. The deep sleep Bhagavan is telling us here, which is that deep sleep point only Bhagavan is getting us to in that gap between the thoughts. And more than that, the emphasis which Nandakumarji has brought us to in the doing part of it, although doing is not required in being, but the importance of the practice of self-inquiry. If we do not practice self-inquiry, we would have wasted the opportunity given to us by Bhagavan. So the practice is very, very significant. Unless we apply it, unless we get back to the abundance which is thrown open to us, this is what I was gathering in the second part where he was talking about what the universities are doing. And the universities are allowing something to be gathered and then providing an atmosphere for applying that practically, and to practically apply the being to be is what Bhagavan is giving us an opportunity for in self-inquiry. This, and Nandakumarji also pointed out that all the three are absorbed. This the knowing, being, and doing all come together, because again we have seen, and we may see in future verses also, that this being alone is responsible for all doing. There is actually no doing but for the being. So everything stems only from this. So whatever we want, knowing is also stemming only from the being. If we want knowledge, it cannot exist apart from the self. If we want the Chit Shakti, which is the doing, which is the movement, the Kriya, that cannot happen without the self. So everything is consumed by that. And that is why he mentioned also, if we want the supreme knowledge, as mentioned in Ramana Gita, if we want the highest, then this includes everything. And it is brought to us with great grace by Bhagavan in the simple experience of, actually every knowing has this as a basis, every doing has this as a basis, and of course pure being is complete in itself. But we can turn to it even in the knowing and the doing. That is where Bhagavan's inquiry takes us to. In the knowing means through thought. When we turn to the basis of thought, we get to the source of the knower. And when we turn, we also get to the source of the actor, because thought is the primary doing, thought is the primary action. So by understanding this, that's why it is said, let me know that by knowing which everything else is known. So let us know that by knowing which everything else is known. The futility of knowing anything else was brought home to us, and the extraordinary importance, the supremacy of the importance of self-knowledge, I feel has been brought home to us today in a very simple manner. And it's very amazing because To me, today's talk is sort of helping me, because I have to make another talk tomorrow based on this subject, the importance of self-knowledge. And this is on a personal note that Bhagavan has given me great clarity about this. If knowing about just the water footprint can transform one's life, what happens when one knows about the basis of all knowledge? Or if one does not know, again coming back to Bhagavan's verse in Atma Vidya Kirtanam, Tannai Aridal Indri Pinnai Yedarihilan. What is there to know apart from knowing the self? If one does not know, of what use is it to know anything else? And once one knows, then what is there to be known? What further is there to be known? That is the point to which we are being taken today. The importance, I would say, the significance of self-abidance has been brought home to us today. And I often feel that if we feel self-abidance is the most significant thing, then really nothing can stop us from abiding in the self. It is not even because practice is so simple. Practice of self-inquiry is so simple. So what stands between us and abidance? It is that we are not yet fully convinced about its supreme importance. The whole journey, the whole sadhana is to convince ourselves from various ways. This whole satsang is to convince ourselves about the significance of self-abidance. As we keep on listening to this, we realize, yes, this is important, this is important. We begin by thinking this is important. Then we move on to thinking this is more important than other things. And then finally we will understand this alone matters, nothing else matters. So that is what the satsang takes us to, and self-inquiry, of course, by giving us the direct experience of it. So nothing can equal direct experience. When we get direct experience of the self, then nobody needs to say anything to us about it. It will be self-revelatory. So that is where self-inquiry takes us, and that is the great grace of Bhagavan. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri
Namo Ramanaka. Namo Ramana.
Ramana.
Namo Ramana to all. Sorry about the transmission difficulties.